Welcome. Okay, so we are doing the 5th unit for 7th grade math. Negative numbers, multiplication and division. It's very similar to the addition and subtraction unit, except it's multiplication and division with integers instead. So in this unit, there's some fractions and some word problems and dealing with integer bases, fractional bases. It's a pretty easy and short unit, so I'm just kind of going to skim through, and yeah, that's pretty much that. Signs of expression. So I do recommend you practice the individual quizzes, by the way. Signs of expressions. Okay, so what would we get here? Well, this here would be a negative, right? A negative divided by a negative, sorry, a negative divided by a positive is a negative. A negative times a positive is a negative. You don't even need to know what the numbers are. Oh, sorry, it says a equals 0. So if a equals 0, anything times 0 is 0. Good thing I saw that. Here, this would be negative and this would be negative. Two negatives make a positive. So they're not asking you to do the math. They're just asking for you to, like, what would you get? Positive, negative, or 0? Anything divided. So 0 divided by a number would always be 0. Doesn't matter what that number is. If p was greater than, okay, well, q equals 0. So that's going to let me know once again 0. So that part of the unit is pretty easy. They should honestly put this first. I don't know why, but let's do this. Two negatives make a positive. You should already know your multiplication tables. If you have one negative, your answer is negative. So one negative, your answer is negative. Two negatives, your answer is positive. Very simple. Same thing with dividing. One negative, your answer is negative. Two negatives, your answer is positive. Anything 0 divided by any number is 0. Very simple. All right, so let's go to one-step equations. So with one-step equations, to move things around, when something is being multiplied, to move it to the other side, you divide, and vice versa. So I'll leave that there. All right, so this is, I need to get t by itself. So how do I do that? Well, in order to move the 2/5 to the other side, you're going to divide both sides by 2/5, because 2/5 t divided by 2/5 just gets you 1t. And then you have to, whatever you do on one side of the equation, you have to do on the other. And so how do we divide fractions? We take the second fraction, we flip and we multiply. We get negative 35 over 8. Always simplify. And you can leave it like that. No need to change it to a mixed number. But always simplify your fractions if you can. This one can't be simplified. Feel free to use a calculator if you want, but you can do your fractions and things by hand. When something is being divided, how do we move it to the other side? We multiply. So what's negative 3 times negative 15? Well, that's a positive 45. And for this one, how do we move the 2 to the other side? Well, when something's being multiplied, we divide it. So if I divide both sides by 2, I get the f by itself. Negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. And if you ever get something wrong, Khan Academy will show you how to do it. And so even with decimals, feel free to use calculator. How do I move the 2 to the other side? I multiply it. I multiply 2 to the other side. And the reason is because, it cancels out. So z times 2 over 2 gets you 2z over 2, which is just z. So that's why it just cancels out for those who, need to understand what's going on. Math is all about understanding. When you understand why things happen, it makes more sense. Okay, so then negative 4.75 times 2 gets me negative 9.5. And so that's how you move things around with one-step equations. Those are important. Make sure you do those and practice. Let's go to some word problems. Word problems are always fun. Keone is driving cross country, the engine burns 7.5 liters of fuel every 100 kilometers. So far, they burned 37.5 liters of fuel. The following equation describes the situation. So this is the total that they lost, which is why it's negative, divided by how much is lost per 100 kilometers is 5. What does the 5 tell us? That this person has driven 500 kilometers, not 5 hours. 500 kilometers, not 5 kilometers, 500, right? Every 7.5 is 100. So it would be A. Grandpa Ernie is shrinking. Over the past 4 years, his height decreased by a total of 2.4. It decreased by the same amount each year. What was the change? Okay, so then the change is he's going down by 2.4, and it's been 4 years. So what's negative 2.4 times 4? Negative 9.6. So he's now at negative 9.6. Oh, they just want the change. So I'm guessing, wait, hold on. Each year. Sorry. Oh, it's even more simple. They just want you to write it like this. Sorry. Wait, hold on. Grandpa Ernie is shrinking. Over the past 4 years, his height decreased by a total of 2. Oh, it decreased by a total. Yep, and that's why with word problems, you have to pay attention. Okay, in that case, if it was a total of 2.4 per year, sorry, you would divide by 4. So he is decreasing by negative 0.6 centimeters per year. Sorry, make sure you pay attention to keywords. Total of decreased 4 years. Those are all important factors to this problem. And so this is just same thing, interpreting and whatnot, dealing with some negatives. So that's the first part of this unit. All right, so the second part of the unit is dealing with fractions. And then the last part is some other stuff. So we will split this into 2 videos. So let's go with the fractions here. All right, so 2 negatives make a positive. Same thing here. These 2 negatives make a positive. These 2 negatives make a positive. These are all written differently, but they all will, at the end of the day, just be a positive 5/3. Simple. Same thing here. This becomes a positive 8/7. These ones do not, because they only have 1 negative. So none of those are equivalent. 2 negatives make a positive, but then you have this other negative, so that will still be negative. Both of these will be negative, that's positive. None of those are similar. So you're just finding equivalent expressions. Very easy. Same thing here. This becomes positive. None of those will also be positive. This becomes positive because there's 2. This one will too. It's the same thing, very simple. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Multiplying fractions, very easy. Better than adding and subtracting. You just multiply straight across. What's 4 times 7? 28. What's a negative fraction times a negative fraction? A positive fraction. And what's 5 times 6? 30. Now simplify this. What's the GCF of 28 and 30? Well, I know they both can be divided by 2, so let's just start there. This gets me 14, and this gets me 15. And yeah, that looks like that's the GCF because it cannot be simplified any further. Always simplify your fractions. You should already know fractions from 5th grade math. Simplifying, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Now you just have integers. Oh, this is easy. This becomes 30 over 56. 2 positives multiplied together. Okay, now let's simplify this. What's the GCF of 30 and 56? Both of them could be divided by 2, and that would get you 15/28. So just remember, when multiplying fractions, you're multiplying straight across. When dividing fractions, you're taking the second fraction. And some of my students always call this the key change flip, I guess, or something like that they hear. So yes, you're taking the second fraction, you're flipping it, and you're multiplying. And that becomes 1 negative, answer's automatically negative. 7 times 2 is 14. 3 times 2 is 6. Both numbers can be divided by 2. And I forgot my negative. Oops. There it is. And then you can also just make it, a little easier. Just cross multiply. What's 5 times 1? 5. What's 7 times 2? 14. Two negatives make a positive. Always simplify if you can. It's pretty easy unit so far. Oh, these are a little trickier. I think this might be the last part. Yeah. So mixed numbers. When when dealing with mixed numbers, whether you are multiplying or dividing, always change your mixed numbers to improper fractions first. Because how are you going to do that? Well, first change this to a improper fraction. What's 3 times 2? 6, and then 7, right? Add the 1. Just ignore the negative. Just change 3.5 to improper. 3 times 2 is 6, right? Add the 1. Denominator stays the same. This becomes -7/2, right? If you switched it back, it'd be -3.5. All right, we know we're going to multiply. We know we're going to take the second fraction and flip it. There we go. Two negatives make a positive. We know how to multiply. And we also know how to simplify. Divide top and bottom by 2, and you get 28/5. No need to change it to a mixed number unless you want. That's the answer. All right, let's do one more here. So same thing, change these mixed numbers into improper fractions. That becomes 8, 9, 10, 11, -11/8 times, this becomes -7/11 over -11/7. I forgot to flip it, but that's okay. Let's just make this a division sign then. Okay, so now I'm gonna take the second fraction and flip it. And you can cross cancel. If this is an 11 and this is 11, just cross cancel. It helps you with simplifying. You don't have to simplify at the end. This just becomes 7/8. Or, you could just, if you're not sure when you should cross cancel, this still will get you positive 77/88, which still gets you 7/8 when you simplify. Very simple. And so that's this unit up to quiz 2, mainly dealing with just integers and fractions, maybe some decimals, one-step equations. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.